how to get that path? D colon Jan. You enjoy it.
Because I created that
Yes,
folder.
that is okay. From the properties, I can get it.
What question, sir?
Yeah, okay.
See, I created a folder. This D drive John Angler batch 23. In that, I created a folder called as programs. So I opened that. You get the path. Just navigate it.
Okay.
I hope all of you have done this right. Right. Now what we do is we will create our first program. Right. We will create our first application. So how do we create an application using Angular is we use a command ng new your application name. So what is the name? Maybe I will start with something called as program 1. I just named it as program 1. You can name it whatever you want, but please ensure that you give a name that makes sense. Right? Let's create it. Yes, Subesh, I'll request you to go through our yesterday's session. I have recorded, right? You check with the management, you will get the recorded video. Please go through that, Subesh.
నువ్వు అట్లా నీరు ముందు వీడియో వస్తున్నావు.
It is asking, would you like to add Angular routing?
Say no. So all of you get like this. Would you like to add Angular routing? At this point of time, we don't want to get into routing. That is something we'll do little later. So I'll say no. Which styles you would like to use? CSS, SCSS, right? Out of all this. Right now we'll go ahead with CSS, but bit later I'll show you SCSS as well. Press enter, the default one. Shantanu and Kumar, right? Management is requesting for your contact details. Please do provide that. It will take some time, guys. So let that happen.
Okay.
Check for respective command, Shubham. The project is created. In my local machine, I have Git installed. That's where it says successfully initialized Git. You may not get the same message. Now you can see here, you have got program 1. The project is created. I'll wait until all of you say it's done, even for you as well.
It's done.
I selected no for Angular routing around. Angular CLI is a tool using which we create projects, we perform several activities that you will understand today. All of you please confirm if you reach till here or not, guys.
Yes.
Yes.
Yes. I'm facing issue.
Okay.
I'm opening, which I got opening of Windows PowerShell. It's open. Administration Windows PowerShell is opening.
No, you should open Node.js command prompt.
I open for Node.js command prompt only.
కోది కాసలు ఈ తెలియదు అన్న వాళ్ళు వెళ్ళిపోయారు
Varaprasad?
Yes.
Yeah, like you are getting unmuted and then people could hear noise from your home, right? So please. Is this clear, guys? Means
When I open for a Node.js command prompt, here just can I share my screen?
sure, I'll yes.
Is it possible? Can I share my screen?
Yeah, that's what I'm giving you access to share. Please share.
Okay.
అంతే వేయలేదు
Yeah, I will share my screen. Are you able to see my screen?
Yes.
See, when I open for Node.js, this is I open command prompt through.
Okay. Which operating system it is?
This is Windows.
Okay.
I think he has opened Node.js instead of the
No.
command prompt.
Close this, please. Search for Node.js command prompt.
Node.js command prompt is not there. No?
Can you share your screen, please? You're not sharing your screen. Yes, it is there, right?
Yes.
Now you can go ahead and create the project.
Why the system cannot find the path specified?
You should do cd colon. CS is not a command. cd colon d colon / any folder name, or you have to create a folder from here. You switch it to D drive and then you create folders from here.
Sorry.
Varaprasad, just give the D colon.
D colon.
Yes, and enter it. It will switch from C drive to D drive. Please share your screen, please.
You are not sharing your screen, Varaprasad.
Here, Ocran Fido.bounce files. Now are you able to see my screen?
Yes. Now you do CD.
Just give D colon. If you want to switch it to D drive,
CD space D colon.
you don't require to
No,
give CD.
even if you just want to go, just say D colon.
Okay.
Press enter.
Okay.
Now you
Now
create
I want to move to a speed space.
Copy the path from File Explorer and paste it here.
Okay. Now I want to run for Angular
See,
application for
that's
like
what Varaprasad, you are not listening, right? What others are saying. So they were saying that you copy the path from D drive,
Sorry?
wherever you are.
This is I want my path. D drive is correct.
In that you created programs folder, right? So now you have to
Yes.
go to that CD programs.
Okay.
Now you say ng new program 1. Okay.
Continue program 1. Okay.
So it will ask you, do you want to use routing? You say no.
Yes.
Varaprasad, I am saying N. Press enter.
Okay.
Okay.
Okay. Okay. Got it.
That's it. All right. You can stop sharing the screen.
Okay. Thanks. Thank you.
Yeah. I request everyone to be little patient when I am teaching such things, because there are people with different knowledge levels, so we should ensure that, so we will help everyone to understand things as much as possible, right? That's where, so we have to do these things. Now we have created a project, right? I request all of you to get into the programs. That means the project that you have created, that is program 1. So now I am inside this program 1. Do run this command, code space dot, press enter. Now that project source code will be opened in Visual Studio Code. Whenever you want to open any project in Visual Studio Code, the best thing is just navigate to that folder, do this, code space dot. I hope all of you would have done the same. Now this is the project. Yes, this is the project. I'll not take you inside this, what is there inside each one. Let's do one thing. Now go back to our command prompt. Go back to our command prompt. Execute a command called as ngserve. Execute a command called as ngserve. Press enter and see what will happen.
It is giving us unknown command.
Command is not available like in just like that. It's getting error.
Which command?
ngserve.
Server. When we enter the ng cell, this command is not available, then running the Angular CLI outside a workspace.
That means you did not get into program one folder.
Oh.
First go inside the program one folder, guys. Ensure that you are pointing to this.
Yeah, I am inside the program only. But when I give it is stating error unknown command did you mean say.
Listen, access permission denied. There is some permission issue. I upgraded versions, right? Okay, so okay, so in your case, right, for Narayana and Kanakadurga, it is working fine. That's okay. So now
When we create the project at the time, it will ask the Angular routing now. Means what happen? Yes or no, we are entering that command.
see in Angular, there is a concept called as routing. Do you want to use that or not?
Means like what is like normal things and routing things like differences.
For that, I had to teach you
Okay.
routing, right? So
Okay.
for how many of you it's working fine, guys? In my machine, for some reason, it is giving some error.
Yeah, I'm working fine.
Working fine for me, Shrikant.
Working fine for me as well.
Okay, so I'm the only right luckiest guy here who is getting this error.
No, I am also getting the
Same error or a different error?
Different error. I mean unknown command did you means I have pasted that. I also found this in Google stating some command needs to be given. Can I try that?
Yeah. This is basically 4200 is the port where your application is running. So you typed the wrong command, Rajesh. So you didn't give ngserve, or did you install Angular?
Yeah, I installed it. Just a second. I am just giving another command with from Google.
Yes, sir. What is the meaning of ngserve?
I'll show you. All right. When that command executes successfully, it will show some output here. So I'll explain with that output what is happening. Listening cluster.
Srikant, just kill your port 4200. It is being used.
Yeah.
So you have to kill your port, or you have to restart your port. So it has been locked.
It's 10 o'clock.
Okay, so it's done. Whenever you get an error like this, listen e access permission denied, right? The problem is a port issue. So for that, what we have to do is we have to open this PowerShell administrator, means Windows PowerShell in an administrator mode, and run these two commands: net stop winnat, net start winnat. That is what I found in Google, and that is what I have done. And resulting, now when you go back and run this command ngserve, now you get this message, right? Server is listening on this. Now what this ngserve command will do? ngserve command builds the application and runs the application in the local development server, and it listens for your changes, guys. Any change you make in your source code, automatically, that whenever you save those changes, automatically your browser gets refreshed and you will get the changes, right? When you use ngserve command, it builds an application and serve it locally. A server will automatically rebuild the application and reloads the page whenever you make any change to your project file. Is that clear? Now I can open a browser. I can just say localhost colon 4200. We get this output. I believe every one of you, if you try to access this in your local systems, when ngserve is executed successfully, you should see the same output. All right. How many of you are able to see the same output, guys?
I can see Shrikant.
I'm able to see, Shrikant.
Only two. Can you please raise your hands, guys? So that we'll get to know. Like how I had the problem, if any one of you had any problem, we can resolve and we can proceed further.
I'm able to see.
Okay. Now here we are using these commands ngserve. Like this, there are different commands: ng build, right? ng new, right? And then you see many other commands as we progress further. All those are available for us because we have installed Angular CLI. We have installed Angular CLI. That is the reason we are able to perform or execute these commands. Only 6 people has raised their hands, guys. How about others? Let me ask like this: Bhagyashree, Dinesh, Hanumantaraju, Kumar, Medha, Maurushi, Rajesh, Varaprasad, Shubham.
I'm still getting that error of unknown command edu means
Okay, can you share your screen, please? Sir,
are you able to see?
saw command name wrong, sir.
Sorry?
NG, sir, spelling mistake. That is what I was telling.
NGSC?
RVE.
Oh, okay. Oh, okay, sorry. Yeah, got it.
You should see what are we doing, right? So that like you will get to know. So now you see it's compiled successfully and it's done.
Hmm.
Now open a browser and try to access that application. Reload this. You should get the output. Clear, sir?
Yeah, right.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Medha, Kumar, Shantanu, Bhagyashree, Hanumantaraju.
I just joined, sir. Actually, .NET class is just now completed.
So you attended the class yesterday, right? We have installed everything, right? Yesterday.
Yes, sir. Something.
Yeah. Now you have to create a new project.
Okay, sir. I will see and.
Okay. Yeah. Maybe you can practice it after the class. That's okay. Yeah. All right. Now I'm starting the discussion, guys. So I guess I have given all of you ample time to run a project, create a project, all that basic stuff. Now I'll go back to our program. Before we proceed further and look at the source code, it's time for us to understand some HTML concepts. Either Angular or React, all these are right extensions on top of HTML to keep it simple. Let me ask you a few basic questions. What is this, guys? In HTML, what do you call that as?
Tag.
Let's go a little technical. So tag is a general keyword. So what do you call that as?
Div tag is a section.
Division of section.
Yeah, it is a container.
The project can understand that when we put in div like this.
That is basically element, right? These are called as elements, right? P is an element. All right. So head is an element. Like this, you will have multiple elements, right? All these are elements. What is this is called as ID. What do you call that as?
Label for that particular division.
What do you call this as, guys?
Attributes.
Attributes. All right. What do you call this as? This is basically a class. This is basically a class. All right. Now, in HTML, anything that you do, you should be dealing with one of these. It can be either an element, or it can be an attribute, or it can be a class, or you may have something called as commented code. Anything you do in HTML, you would be dealing with one of these. Either it can be an element, it can be an attribute, or it can be a class, or it can be a commented code. Technically, we call it as EACM or ECMA, whatever you call it as. Element, attribute, class, M stands for commented code. M stands for commented code, or basically comments. In HTML, this is what you could write. Now, in technical terminology, these are called as directives, guys. All these are called as what? Directives. What is a directive? A directive can be an element, or it can be an attribute, or it can be a class, or it can be a commented code. A directive can be any one of these. How Angular or React or any other framework to that matter works is by giving you the control to go more and more deeper and take control into your hands by creating your own directives, and it's your wish whether you would like to use that directive as an element or an attribute or class or commented code. Now, if I take you here, I'll open one file called as src, basically a folder src. In that, I'll open a file called as index.html. This is the index.html. The content that you see here, is coming from a page called as which page? Which file? Index.html. If you see here, these are the chunk files. Basically, these are the JavaScript files. And if you observe, Angular Live Development Server is listening on this port, or open your browser and do this. When you do that, this is the content that you are getting. Now, this content is coming from where? This content is coming from here, index.html. How do I tell you that? Look at the title. That is program 1. Look at this. It is program 1. If you still have a doubt, right click, say view page source. You see, this is the content of this index.html. Apart from that, some other additional JavaScript file references are being added. How do that process happens is something I'll explain a little later. Otherwise, if you look at this, this is the content of which page, guys? Index.html. That means what you see here is the content.
Not able to hear. Hello?
I think he has lost the connection.
Yeah.
Am I audible, guys?
Yes, Rick.
Yeah, there
Yes.
was some power interruption and resulting my Wi-Fi got disconnected. Now, HTML is an element, head is an element, meta is an element, title is an element. All these are elements, and you know these HTML elements. How about app root? What is this? That is also an element, but that element is not provided by HTML by default. Now I will not call this as an element. Instead, I will call that as what? What do we call that as, guys? What do we call that as in technical terminology? So what do we call that as?
Directive.
It's a directive. A directive can be an element or an attribute or a class. Now, who has provided this directive? When you create a new project using Angular CLI, you get that directive created by default. Right, this is a directive that is created. Now, where do I find this directive? You have two options. Do one thing, do Control-Shift-F, search for that. I can take you directly, right? But I just wanna show you how we can debug things. Now you can see there is something called as what? app.component.ts. Inside that you have a selector. This is a component class. This is a component class. A most important concept in Angular called as components. To keep things simple, components are building blocks of an Angular application. Components are building blocks of an Angular application. The entire content that you see here is coming from a component called as which component? What is the component name, guys? App component. Components are building blocks of an Angular application. Whether you deal with Angular or whether you deal with React, everywhere you will have a concept called as components. In Angular, directives are of three types: structural directives, attribute directives, and component directives. Components are a kind of directives. Components are kind of directives. Remember that. These are directives. So when you create a component, you end up creating something called as what? A directive. Now, this is a class. But what you see here is HTML content. From where this HTML content is coming? That you can understand by looking at this. Keep the cursor on this template URL. For this Angular component, what is the template from where the content HTML file content is coming? It is coming from a file called as which file, guys? app.component.html. Now if I go to File Explorer, here you can see something called as app.component.html. Open that app.component.html. This is the content that you see there. If you want to make any changes to this, you can make changes and you can see the change there. I can just say welcome to Angular. You just save this change and go back to your command prompt, Node.js command prompt. You can see it will automatically build. Compile successfully, browser application bundle generation complete, and then you get this output. If you go back, you see welcome to Angular. It automatically gets reloaded because you did ng-serve. Now I can do one thing. I can delete all this. This is our first program using Angular. Just save this content. Automatically, if you go back to the browser, you will see the output. This is our first program using Angular. Is this clear, guys? Now, there is so much of confusion from index.html, how it comes here, how it, right, how AppRoot is identified that it is this, all that confusion, we will try to clear it up. Are you able to make this change and see that in the browser, guys?
Yes.
So, is this clear till here? Any confusion here? All right, so then let me explain you a couple of things. This is what we technically call it as bootstrapping an application. This is not the bootstrap that you know with respect to CSS. Can anyone tell me or tell everyone what is bootstrap? General meaning of bootstrap? Bootstrap, right? English meaning of bootstrap. What is bootstrap, guys?
To make everything fit into
Right? What is general English meaning of bootstrap, guys? not the CSS Bootstrap that I am referring. In general, Bootstrap means compute. In general, Bootstrap means what? Compute. Now, when you run this application, using ngServe, your application gets bootstrapped. When an Angular application gets bootstrapped, what happens is multiple things gets executed, guys. So basically, first step is it loads something called as which page? Index.html. Now into this index.html, it will load Angular, other libraries. We will use many other libraries and application code. Now, from where are we getting all this into this index.html? If you refer, right click here, say view page source, you get these files: runtime.js, polyfills.js, styles.js, vendor.js, and then you have something called as what? Main.js. And look at this: vendor.js, polyfills.js, styles.js, main.js, runtime.js. All these files code will come. And when we made some change in one file, you see main.js and runtime.js. Rest of the files were remained same. So all those files, your application, basically code, Angular, and other libraries will be loaded into this index.html. Now, out of those files, different files are used for different purposes. What I am interested right now is to show main.js. But do we use JavaScript for our programming? In Angular application development, do we use JavaScript? No. We don't use JavaScript. What do we use? TypeScript. We use TypeScript. So the TypeScript code that you write, browser will not understand TypeScript directly. Browser can understand only
HTML,
JavaScript. So your TypeScript code will be compiled, or basically that is what we call it as transpiled into JavaScript. Your TypeScript code will be transpiled into what, guys? JavaScript. So if you have main.js there, you will have main.ts here. So you can see you have a file called as what file? Main.ts. Basically, after these two steps, the next step is execute main.ts. Basically, what happens is it executes main.ts. Now, what will be there in main.ts? Go here. Now, in main.ts, you can see there is something called as bootstrap module. And what module gets bootstrapped? App module. That means you compute. Which module? App module. Now, where you can find app module? You are basically importing app module from this location. Which location? In app folder, you have a file called as app.module. This is the folder name and this is the file name. So now if I go to app folder, inside that I can find a file called as app.module.ts. What will be there in app.module.ts? What is a module? We will understand. Angular is built based on the concept of modules and components. A module will have several things: declarations, imports, exports, providers, but the last important thing is bootstrap. What component is bootstrap? You can see here, app component. So when you load main.ts, it identifies that it has to bootstrap or basically compute. Which module? Which module, guys?
Yeah,
App module. Now, if you go to app module, basically it loads, this is top level module. And when you go to this module, you identify that it has to load which component? App component. And it will go to app component.ts class. This is app component.ts class. You can do one thing. You can go here, right click, go to implementation. It will take you here. It will take you there. And this is the class. On top of this class, you have a decorator called as @component, and that decorator has a metadata. Inside that metadata, you have a property called as what? Template URL. What is the template file in which you have created the template, or basically the HTML content. What is the file name? app.component.html. So basically, load app.module and then load app.component, and then what is the next step, guys? Process which one? app.component.html, because that is the template file. That is the template file. Is this clear? All this process happens when you run the Angular application. When you access the index.html in your browser, these many things do happen. Is this clear, guys?
Can you repeat one more time? Because I was lost in another part.
When we use ngServe, basically our application gets bundled and it gets executed in the local development server on this port. Now when we access this port, basically what happens behind the scenes is it will load a page called as which page? Index.html. And in this index.html, it will have references of different JavaScript files. And those JavaScript files will do what? They load Angular, other libraries, and most important thing is application code. All your application code also will be loaded. Resulting, after they are loaded, it executes a file called as which file? Main.ts. In main.ts, you have specified that bootstrap a module. Basically, this platform browser dynamic, it is again from here you are importing. More about these things you will understand as we progress, guys. You are bootstrapping a module called as which module? App module, and this gets executed within the browser. You can be developing a mobile app or you can be developing a web app. Right now we are developing a web app, not a mobile app. So you basically bootstrap this module for a given platform. Our platform is browser, not a mobile browser, it's a desktop browser. So this app module will be bootstrapped or will be loaded. When this app module is loaded, inside this app module, you have specified that which component has to be bootstrapped? App component has to be bootstrapped. Now if you go to this app component, you specified at the right metadata level that the template URL is this. You just get the contents of this and process that. Processing result is the result of processing is getting this output. Is that clear? This entire process is what we call it as bootstrapping an Angular application. This entire process is what we call it as bootstrapping an Angular application. Same bootstrap strategy do happen for a React application also. Every application has to get bootstrap. Is this clear? So you have index.html, you have main.ts, you have app.module.ts, you have app.component.ts. From there you get app.component.html content. Is this flow or process clear, guys?
Yes, sir. Yeah.
Any confusion here, guys, for any of you? A base.
At which stage that .ts will be converted to .js?
We'll explain. That process is called as transpilation. So we will discuss about that transpilation separately.
Okay.
Now, if you go here, you have this main.js, right? Click on this main.js. That will have, you see, the code of your app component. So your app component code will be there here. And it uses something called as factory, and there are different things.
No, inside main.ts itself, that app root will be replaced with the component app component. There is an app root tag in the index.html, right? So like where do that say like app root has to be replaced with that component? Yeah, I see that. So
this is basically a component. Now this component is referred selector, right? What is selector in general?
Like some identifier used to select a
Some
set
identifier, right? Now this app component is represented by using this selector. Now if I change this to app test, if I save this, now if you go here, see what will happen? You will not get anything.
Yeah.
Because you are trying to represent app root which doesn't exist anywhere. Now I can change it to what? App test. That means I'm trying to point to a directive called as which directive?
App test only. Yes.
App test directive. Now if you go here, you get the output.
Okay.
Basically that app test that we are referring here as a selector, basically is, read this. It is basically directive selector. Now what is directive here? This app component is a directive. Or if you keep the cursor, now this is what it is, right? Building block of an application, and component is a directive. Remember that. Right? A component is what, guys? Is a directive. You see where it will find, it will be there in this directives. Component is a directive. Remember that. In Angular, there are three kinds of directives.
These are different concepts, guys. We'll be discussing about all this in detail. So at least at this point of time, you would have understood that in Angular you have concept called as modules, you have concept called as components, you have concept called as directives, and we have something called as services, right? You have pipes, you have interceptors. There are so many things that we have inside. We will be discussing all of this one by one. Is this clear, guys? Any confusion here, guys?
Sir, actually, in the left side, under the app, we have seen the .css, HTML, .ts. These are the files we have seen now. So, what is the interrelation between if you are writing any program? That means if I click the app component .specs.ts, what is that meaning to that? I may have seen the title is called program one. Like that, is there any relation?
Yes. Okay, now the question is, we have CSS, we have HTML, we have spec.ts, we have .ts, we have app.module.ts. Basically, as I said, in Angular, you have a concept called as components. Right now, there is one component called as app.component.ts. But in the next class, you will see that we will create multiple components. When you create a component, every component in Angular will have 4 files. One is TS file, one is HTML file, another one is CSS file. TS file will have the class and TypeScript code, and the template content is represented by using which file? app.component.html. The styles that you use inside that will be placed inside app.component.css. Are these 3 files clear? It's like your HTML, JavaScript, and CSS. Instead of JavaScript, we use TypeScript. These are the 3 files. Are these 3 files clear?
Yes.
Then there is something called as spec.ts. We do unit testing, right? A bit later, I'll explain you about the unit testing concept. We do something called as unit testing. For that, you have to write certain unit tests. Where do you write those unit tests? We will write those unit tests inside a file called as app.component.spec.ts. Specifications. Alright. So this is where you write your unit tests. So this is a file that consists of unit tests. So when you create a component, you may want to write unit tests related to that particular component. All those unit tests we will be placing inside a file called as which file? app.component.spec.ts.
A unit test is different from the debugging, sir.
Unit test is different from?
Debugging of the
Yeah, that's a different process.
One thing like app.component.cs only we want to write by CSS code, HTML means then app.component.ts means difference between the module.ts and the component.ts. What kind of code we want to write this the structure?
Okay, yeah. Now question is, what kind of code do you write inside this app.component.ts? Now, I may